The twilight sky stretched across the horizon in shades of violet and indigo, city lights beginning to flicker awake as darkness settled over the evening. Diane sat curled on the living room sofa, her laptop balanced on her knees, the soft murmur of the television providing gentle background noise. She glanced at the clock on the wall, well past 10, and realized she hadn't seen Tyler since they'd shared dinner hours ago. Before I unfold the rest of this night, take a second to hit like and subscribe. It really does help more than you know, and if you're drawn into stories like this, I want you here for every one of them. Also tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Are you in a small town where the evenings fall slow and gentle, or in a city where the lights never quite go dark? Curiosity pulled her from her comfortable spot. She moved quietly down the hallway, her bare feet making no sound against the smooth hardwood floors. A sliver of light escaped from beneath Tyler's door, which stood slightly open. She paused, uncertain, then pushed it gently. What she saw made her freeze. Tyler sat propped against his headboard, laptop glowing on his knees. The screen illuminated his face with a pale light, and Diane immediately recognized the nature of what he was watching, something meant for adults only. His hand moved beneath the covers, his expression caught between intense focus and unmistakable shame. "Tyler," she spoke softly, breaking the heavy silence. He jolted upright, head snapping toward her as though she'd caught him committing a felony. The laptop slammed shut instantly, his cheeks burning crimson. "Diane, I didn't hear you," he stammered, yanking the blanket higher as if it could somehow make him invisible. She stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind her. Leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, she kept her expression calm, curious rather than judgmental. "What's going on in here?" she asked, though the answer was already clear. His gaze dropped to the floor. It's all right," she interrupted gently. "You don't need to explain. I understand." Silence hung between them, thick and uncomfortable. Tyler fidgeted nervously with the edge of his blanket, heart hammering against his ribs. He felt completely exposed. Diane crossed the room and settled on the edge of his bed, her presence somehow both comforting and unsettling. She studied him quietly, her eyes growing softer. "Would you like to talk about it?" He wavered, wanting desperately to dismiss the whole thing, to pretend nothing had happened. But her steady gaze made that impossible. "I'm scared," he finally admitted, his voice barely audible. "Scared of what?" He exhaled heavily, raking fingers through his disheveled hair. "Megan. We've been together for months now, and she's been hinting that she wants to take things further. But I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm terrified I'll embarrass myself, that I'll disappoint her." Diane nodded thoughtfully, reaching out to rest a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Tyler, that feeling is completely natural. Everyone feels uncertain their first time. It's a significant moment, and being nervous about it doesn't make you weak." He lifted his eyes to meet hers, gratitude and desperation swirling together. "But what if I'm awful at it? What if she regrets being with me?" She laughed softly, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze. "You're overthinking this. The most important thing is to be yourself. Communicate with her. Listen to what she needs. Don't be afraid to go slowly. It's not about perfection. It's about presence." He nodded, but doubt still clouded his features. "I just wish I knew what to expect. I don't want to let her down." Diane sighed, her heart aching for him. She wanted nothing more than to erase his fears, but she knew words had their limits. "You'll find your way," she said finally, rising from the bed. "Trust yourself." She left quietly, pulling the door closed behind her, then leaned against the hallway wall. Her pulse raced, her mind churning with conflicting emotions. She wanted to help Tyler, truly help him, but she wasn't certain how far she could go, or should go. Back in the living room, she sank onto the sofa and stared blankly at the glowing television screen. How could she give him the confidence he needed? What could she possibly do to prepare him for this milestone? The questions gnawed at her relentlessly. Sleep would not come easily tonight. The following days carried an unspoken weight that Diane couldn't ignore. Tyler's confession lingered in every corner of the house, a constant reminder of his anxiety and the growing distance between them. She found herself watching him more carefully, noticing how he shifted restlessly during meals, how his thoughts seemed perpetually elsewhere. The burden of his worries was visible in his posture, and it broke her heart. Their relationship had always been close, despite their unconventional family structure. When she'd married his father 6 years ago, Tyler had been a shy teenager still navigating the awkwardness of youth. Over time, they'd built something meaningful, part maternal, part friendship. But now, confronted with his deepest insecurities, Diane felt an overwhelming urge to guide him through this critical chapter. even if it meant venturing into unfamiliar territory. One evening, while preparing dinner, she caught herself staring through the kitchen window, her hands moving mechanically over the vegetables. Tyler sprawled across the living room couch, scrolling aimlessly through his phone. His leg bounced with nervous energy, a clear signal of his inner turmoil. Setting down her knife, she wiped her hands and walked to the doorway. "Tyler," she said gently, cutting through the quiet. He looked up, startled. "Yeah, are you all right? You've seemed distant lately." He shrugged, avoiding her eyes. "I'm fine, just thinking." She moved to sit beside him, concern evident in her expression. "Is this about our conversation the other night? About Megan?" After a pause, he nodded. "Yeah, I can't stop worrying about it. It's consuming me." She placed a warm hand on his shoulder. "Tyler, feeling this way is normal. But you can't let it devour you. When the moment arrives, you'll know what to do." His eyes searched hers, filled with uncertainty. "I wish I could believe that." That night, lying in bed, Diane's mind raced with possibilities. She couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to take action, to guide him in ways that went beyond mere words. But how? By morning, a plan had begun forming. It was bold, unconventional, and carried risks she fully understood. But it might be the only way to truly help him. She decided to start gradually, testing his reactions. Over the following days, Diane subtly shifted her behavior around the house. She began choosing more flattering clothing, soft fabrics that followed her curves. A fitted charcoal sweater paired with high, waisted trousers that accentuated her silhouette. A flowing silk robe left slightly open, revealing hints of what lay beneath. She left the bathroom door ajar during her showers, allowing the sound of running water and traces of her perfume to drift into the hallway. Tyler couldn't help but glance toward the opening, catching glimpses of her silhouette through the frosted glass, steam rising around her like an enchanting veil. One evening, she walked past him wearing a short-fitted dress that hugged her hips and showcased her legs. She noticed his eyes flicker downward momentarily before darting away, color rising in his cheeks. She even accidentally sent him links to adult content, claiming they were meant for someone else. The notification appeared on his phone while they sat together in the living room, and Diane pretended not to notice how he fumbled with the device, face reddening as he quickly closed the app. Each interaction left Tyler flustered but intrigued. He found himself stealing glances when he thought she wasn't looking, noticing the way a snug sweater outlined her figure, how her hair cascaded down her back when worn loose. He couldn't understand her sudden change in behavior, but he couldn't deny its effect on him. Diane observed his reactions carefully, gauging his responses. She could see the confusion in his eyes, the internal struggle between propriety and something else entirely. Her approach was working. The barriers between them were slowly dissolving. By week's end, she knew it was time to advance. That evening, she approached him at the dinner table, where he sat pushing food around his plate with furrowed brow. "I've been meaning to try that new bistro that opened downtown," she said casually. "Everyone's been talking about it." Tyler looked up, slightly confused. "Why don't you come with me?" she continued. "It could be fun. Consider it a dinner date." His eyebrows rose. "A date? We haven't spent much quality time together lately," she said with a shrug, as though it were the most natural suggestion in the world. "It would be nice to reconnect." He hesitated, his gaze briefly sweeping over her before looking away. "I suppose I could?" "Perfect," she interrupted with a warm smile. "Reservations at 7. Be ready." He nodded slowly. "Okay." The remainder of the day passed quickly as Diane prepared for the evening ahead. She chose her outfit carefully, a deep burgundy dress she hadn't worn in years. It embraced her figure beautifully, with a flowing skirt ending mid-thigh and a neckline that suggested without revealing. She paired it with elegant heels and a delicate pendant that rested just above her collarbone. Her makeup was deliberate, dramatic eyes and lips that matched her dress. She styled her hair in loose waves cascading down her back. Studying herself in the mirror, she adjusted the straps and smoothed the fabric. Satisfied, she descended the stairs. Tyler waited in the foyer, dressed in a button-down shirt and dark jeans. His eyes widened noticeably when he saw her. "Ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite inner butterflies. He swallowed visibly. "Yeah, you look incredible. Thank you. Let's go." They drove to the restaurant in near silence, tension filling the space between them. Upon arrival, the hostess escorted them to a secluded corner table. Dim lighting and soft music created an intimate atmosphere. Diane sat down, crossing her legs slowly, her dress riding up just enough to reveal a hint of thigh. She noticed Tyler's gaze linger briefly before he quickly looked elsewhere, color flooding his cheeks. They ordered their meals and made small talk, discussing his classes, his friends, mundane daily matters. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the distraction in his eyes. As the evening progressed, she began testing boundaries. She leaned forward when speaking, offering glimpses of her cleavage. Her foot brushed against his leg beneath the table. Tyler stiffened, eyes darting to hers before quickly looking away. "Tyler," she said softly, drawing his attention. "I want you to know I'm here for you. Whatever you're struggling with, you can share it with me." He nodded, expression conflicted. "I know. It's just difficult to discuss." She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You don't have to face this alone." He stared at their hands, breath catching slightly. "Deanne, excuse me a moment," she interrupted smoothly, rising and adjusting her dress. "I'll be right back." In the restroom, she took a steadying breath. Then, reaching beneath her dress, she slipped off her undergarment, folding it neatly and tucking it into her clutch. She refreshed her lipstick, checked her reflection, and returned. When she sat back down, Tyler looked up with a mixture of confusion and anticipation. She reached into her purse and slid the folded fabric across the table toward him. "Keep these," she said quietly, her eyes locked with his. "They're yours now." His face turned scarlet. His mouth opened, but no words emerged. She smiled serenely and signaled the waiter. "Check, please." The restaurant's atmosphere felt electrified as they rose to leave. Tyler's hands trembled as he stuffed the unexpected gift into his pocket, unable to meet her eyes. They walked to the car in silence, the cool evening air contrasting sharply with the heat between them. Diane's heels clicked rhythmically against the pavement as Tyler fumbled with the keys, his hands unsteady. She slid into the passenger seat, deliberately crossing her legs, her dress riding higher to reveal smooth, bare skin. She noticed his quick glance before he forced his attention to the road. The drive home was charged with unspoken tension. She shifted in her seat, uncrossing and recrossing her legs slowly, deliberately. The hem of her dress crept upward, revealing more of her thigh with each subtle movement. At a red light, she allowed her legs to part slightly. She heard his breath catch, saw his eyes flicker toward her before snapping forward again. Neither spoke. The silence said everything. When they finally pulled into the driveway, Tyler cut the engine but remained frozen, hands gripping the wheel, breathing shallow. Diane unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to face him. "Thank you for tonight. It was wonderful." He nodded weakly, still unable to look at her directly. "Me too," he managed. She reached over and gently tilted his chin, forcing his gaze to meet hers. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm here for you. Whatever you're feeling, you can talk to me." He stared at her, eyes brimming with tangled emotions, fear, desire, confusion. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came. She leaned in and placed a tender kiss on his cheek. "Let's go inside." The familiar house felt different now, charged with an energy neither could ignore. Diane set her clutch on the entryway table and turned to face him. "Why don't we sit for a while? We can talk." Tyler's heart pounded. He understood this wasn't merely about conversation. Everything about her, the looks, the touches, the teasing, it all meant something. He wasn't certain he was prepared to confront it, but he couldn't refuse. "Okay," he whispered. She walked into the living room, hips swaying subtly with each step. At the small bar in the corner, she picked up a bottle of aged whiskey. "Care for one?" He nodded. "Sir." She bent deliberately to pour, her dress riding up to reveal what now lay exposed beneath. She knew he was watching and made the moment last, her movements unhurried. His face burned crimson as he quickly averted his eyes. She straightened and approached him, a glass in each hand. Their fingers brushed as she handed him his drink. Then she settled on the couch's edge, legs crossed, dress riding up to expose the curve of her thigh. She patted the cushion beside her. Tyler followed, sitting down while leaving a deliberate gap between them. His eyes fixed on the floor as he fidgeted nervously. Diane studied him, expression soft yet calculating. She leaned forward, her hand brushing against his leg. "Tyler," she said gently. "Look at me." He hesitated, then finally met her gaze. His eyes were wide, filled with equal parts fear and curiosity. She placed her hand over his. "You don't have to be scared. I'm here for you. Whatever you're feeling, you can share it with me." He swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say." She smiled softly, her thumb brushing his skin. "You don't have to say anything. Just listen." She shifted closer, her leg pressing against his. Her presence was intoxicating. She uncrossed her legs slowly, then recrossed them, each movement deliberate and tantalizing. She leaned in, her lips grazing his ear. "Do you trust me?" His entire body trembled. "Yes." Her smile widened as her lips brushed his cheek. Her hand moved from his to rest on his thigh, the touch light but unmistakable. For a moment, the room fell completely silent. Then, without warning, she kissed him. Tyler froze, body rigid with shock. He hesitated momentarily, mind racing. Then something inside him surrendered. He melted into the kiss, trembling hands reaching for her waist. Her lips were soft and warm, the kiss slow and deliberate, filled with unspoken promises. Her hands moved to his shoulders, pulling him closer. He released a soft sound of surrender. The kiss deepened as she guided him into unfamiliar territory, her movements confident and patient. His hands trembled at her waist, uncertain where to go or what to do. She pulled back slightly, breath mingling with his. "Follow my lead." Her hands drifted to his, guiding them to her hips, then up her sides, teaching him how to touch with intention. His breath hitched as he followed her movements, fingers trailing over soft fabric, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath. After a while, she pulled away, lips brushing his cheek. Just a moment. She rose gracefully and disappeared down the hallway. Tyler sat there, hands still trembling, mind spinning. He could still feel the warmth of her lips, the softness of her skin. The anticipation was almost unbearable. When she returned, the burgundy dress was gone. She stood in the doorway, wearing a black lace negligee that left little to imagination. The delicate fabric embraced her curves, intricate patterns accentuating her figure in ways that stole his breath. She leaned against the doorframe, arms loosely crossed, expression confident yet soft. "Do you like what you see?" He couldn't find words. His eyes remained locked on her, as if she were the only thing in existence. She smiled and walked toward him, every movement slow and purposeful. She stopped before him, reaching out to tilt his chin upward. "I asked you a question." He swallowed hard. "Yes." Her smile widened. She leaned down, lips brushing his ear. "Good." She straightened and stepped back. "Patience." He nodded, breath coming in shallow gasps. She turned and walked toward the hallway, glancing over her shoulder. "Come with me." His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Each step she took was deliberate, hips swaying in the black lace that clung like a second skin. When they reached her bedroom, she turned to face him, back against the doorframe, arms crossed loosely. The bedside lamp cast a warm glow, making her appear almost ethereal. She stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. He hesitated at the threshold. "Come in," she said, voice low and inviting. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was warm and intimate, filled with her perfume. The bed was neatly made, sheets inviting, lamp casting golden light. She closed the door and faced him, hands resting on his chest. She could feel his rapid heartbeat beneath her palms. "Are you nervous?" He nodded. "A little?" She smiled, thumb brushing his cheek. "That's okay. We'll take our time." She kissed him again, lips soft and warm. The kiss was slow and deliberate, and he felt himself begin to relax. His hands moved to her waist, fingers trembling against the lace. She pulled back slightly. "Trust me?" He nodded. She took his hand and led him to the bed, movements unhurried. She gently guided him onto the mattress, then climbed atop him, straddling his waist. Her hands rested on his chest. "Let me show you," she whispered. His hands trembled at her hips as she leaned down to kiss him again. Her lips moved with confidence that both thrilled and intimidated him. She was patient and encouraging, teaching him to touch her purposefully, to explore with intention, to be confident in his movements. "Like this," she whispered, guiding his hand to the small of her back. He obeyed without hesitation, fingers trailing over smooth skin. He could feel the heat of her body against his, their hearts racing in unison. The night passed in a blur of sensations, gentle touches, whispered words, slow and deliberate movements. When morning came, golden light filtered through the curtains. The room was quiet, still thick with her perfume and the warmth of their shared intimacy. Tyler lay there, body relaxed yet mind alert. He was aware of what had happened and what it meant. Diane was still asleep beside him, head on his chest, arm draped across his waist, breathing slow and steady. His hand rested lightly on her back, fingers tracing idle patterns as he tried to process everything. It felt surreal, like a dream he wasn't sure he wanted to leave. She had been patient and kind, guiding him through an experience that left him feeling both exhilarated and vulnerable. But now, in morning's clarity, reality was settling in. His mind raced with questions about Megan, about Diane, about where this left everything. Guilt stirred within him, tempered by something else he couldn't quite name. She stirred beside him, eyes fluttering open. She lifted her head and smiled, a soft, sleepy smile, brushing hair from her face. "Good morning." "Morning," he replied quietly. She studied his face as if reading his thoughts. "Are you all right?" He hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted. She nodded, propping herself on her elbow to look at him directly. Her hand rested on his chest, fingers moving in a soothing rhythm. "It's okay to feel conflicted. This was significant for both of us. You don't have to understand everything right now. Just take it one moment at a time. He nodded, eyes never leaving hers. She leaned down and kissed him, slow and tender, a silent promise. When she pulled back, she smiled. Let's just appreciate this moment. He nodded, hand moving to her waist, pulling her closer. They lay together, bodies entwined, hearts beating as one. For a moment, everything felt exactly right. Eventually, she slipped from bed, stretching as she reached for a silk robe. She tied it loosely and glanced back at him warmly. I'm famished. Breakfast. He nodded, though his stomach was knotted. She extended her hand, and he took it, allowing her to pull him upright. They made their way to the kitchen, where she began gathering ingredients. Eggs cracked into a bowl, whisked efficiently, pan heating on the stove. You're quite skilled at this, he observed, attempting to lighten the mood. She glanced over her shoulder with a smile. Years of practice. Cooking has always been my therapy. As she worked, she maintained easy conversation, asking about his favorite foods, sharing childhood memories. Her relaxed manner helped ease the tension, and he found himself gradually unwinding. When breakfast was ready, they sat at the small table by the window, morning sunlight warming the room. Dig in, she said, gesturing to the plate of scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh fruit. He took a bite. This is really good. Glad you approve. They ate in comfortable silence. When finished, she leaned back and looked at him thoughtfully. We should talk. His stomach tightened. He'd known this was coming. She reached across the table and took his hand. And I understand this is complicated, and I know you're experiencing a lot right now. But I want you to know I don't regret last night. I hope you don't either. He looked at their joined hands. I don't regret it, but I'm not sure what it means for us, for Megan. She nodded with understanding. I get that. I'm not asking for decisions right now. This is a lot to process. Take whatever time you need. He looked up, eyes uncertain. What do you want? She smiled. I want you to be happy, and I want to be part of your life in whatever form that takes. But I'm not here to pressure you or complicate things. This is your journey. I'm simply here to support you. He felt a lump form in his throat, emotions swirling. He didn't know what to say, but gratitude filled him for her patience and understanding. They sat together a while longer, talking about everything and nothing, conversation flowing easily. By the time they finished, the sun had risen higher and the morning felt less overwhelming. As they cleared the table together, she glanced at him with a warm smile. Whatever happens next, she said softly, we'll figure it out together. Tyler met her gaze and nodded slowly. For the first time in weeks, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. He didn't have all the answers yet, about Megan, about Diane, about himself. But standing there in the morning light, he realized something important: he wasn't facing any of it alone. And somehow, that made all the difference.